Games Workshop, the creators of Warhammer, just got a huge problem. You see, while the company can shrug off the mightiest of issues, from poor game design to creatives quitting to some guy using the color ultramarine in his paintings of children, actually no, that's totally sue that guy. One thing they can't ignore is the end of Warhammer's ability to pull in billions to trillions of seals in plastic toys. I'm talking about Warhammer miniatures, because if something or someone were to reduce Warhammer miniature seals, it would kind of boil GW's balls a little. Except imagine if this reduction in seals wasn't just a little dip. Imagine instead if it was an absolute existential long-term crash. That would generate a little bit more than a mere temperature rise in the scrotal region. And this is exactly the problem the Games Workshop are facing going into the year 2026, a weirdly cyberpunk sounding year. They are staring at an existential crisis to the only thing they love, their wallet. Sorry, Kevin Roundtree's children. It's just the money, that's it, that's all he cares about. I don't know personally. But unfortunately for them, it's all about to get really bad. You see, in the last half decade, Warhammer has absolutely exploded in popularity, from the numbers of people getting involved, to the money Games Workshop are making, to their stock price, to the amount of YouTubers covering Warhammer, to the number of Tau that inexplicably keep showing up in my hentai feed. It's getting really, really big, you guys. And you'll know that's the case because Games Workshop recently announced that they have a Vampire Survivors game being made about them. Vampire Survivors, screw the AAA game tie-ins. Vampire Survivors is a game that's so addictive, I didn't have a February 2025. Now Warhammer truly is in the big leagues. But there is a lot of reasons as to why Warhammer has gotten really so big. I mean, we didn't get here by accident. It was a combination of massive fan projects like Astartes making people intrigued about Warhammer, lockdowns forcing people to go back to their teenage hobbies and regress in every sense of the word, and video games exposing even more people than ever to the setting. All great reasons why Warhammer now is so very zeitgeisty. But there's another, bigger, secret reason as to why Warhammer is enduring just such a cultural zenith right now, one that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it's one that people don't often talk about, but it actually drives all of Games Workshop's profit. And it's the simple fact that regardless of what my mom says, collecting, painting, and ultimately playing games with miniatures in a really awesome setting is a ton of fun. Warhammer, with all its miniature wargaming glory, is just intrinsically enjoyable. I mean, who hasn't wanted to be a giantess and command lots of tiny little men? Though it's weird that the only art I could find online of this tended to be from the tiny man's perspective for some reason. But here's another dirty little secret. Warhammer isn't the only miniatures war game. You see, just like a game like Dungeons and Dragons isn't the only tabletop role-playing game out there, but instead is the face of a wider RPG industry, Warhammer is exactly the same. It's the face of an entire wargame industry that includes historical games, fantasy games, sci-fi, horror games. Hell, there's even a game where you get to build up a fully functional miniature base, create units of rocket soldiers and goo monsters and space gods and giant tanks, all to go to war with your opponent on a coffee table in unique, fast-paced gameplay reminiscent of the glory days of real-time strategy games. And it's called Little Big War, and I happen to make it, so this is 100% a plug. Check it out on Patreon or Wargame Vault. It rocks. There's the links below. You know you'll want to. Thank you very much. But unlike Dungeons and Dragons, where people will play D&D and then maybe they'll move on to other games like Daggerheart or Pathfinder, which is happening more and more these days, it's very rare that people move on from Warhammer into other games. In fact, many people don't even know that there are other games out there other than Warhammer. I mean, scientifically speaking, 40% of people watching this video are right now scratching their heads and saying, there's other games than Warhammer? And yeah, there is. It's called Little Big War, and it's available now. But seriously, many people don't know other games even exist in this wider hobby. And the reason is really simple. Warhammer has a monopoly on the wargame hobby, one that's even greater than the one that D&D has on the RPG hobby, or the technically not incest category has in porn. And this is how Games Workshop make all their money. They don't make it from video games. I mean, the last year, they only made $50 million from licensing Warhammer out, which is a nice amount of money, don't get me wrong, I'll take a slice of that, but it's nothing compared to the $500 million they made by selling miniatures to people like me. But here's the thing, this month, something happened that might actually upend all of that, because this month we got absolutely insane news that could blow up Warhammer's prized monopoly forever, to be ground into dust like an ancient empire and have future brigands pick over their remains. Just like in Brigands of Arja. Brigands of Arja is the game of fantasy warband battles on a lost and hopeless island from today's video sponsor, Firelock Games. This is a fast-paced warband skirmish game where players will fight amongst the ruins of ancient civilizations in head-to-head, co-op or solo battles, and you can check it out now at my link below. In Brigands of Arja, you'll control half a dozen warriors, but the most important one will be your leader, who you can customize to be a brutal warlord, a cunning tactician, a radical zealot, or even a powerful sorcerer. Every player's warband is totally unique, and all their traits and equipment are fully customizable. No two warbands are alike. Games of Brigands of Arja are fast, tactical, and always full of twists. You'll battle against enemy warbands and wandering monsters for glory and treasure. But beware, for the few remaining treasures to be found on Arja are often cursed, corrupted, or guarded by the most powerful of foes. And to pillage these trinkets is to invite your own doom. So will you prove worthy to feast in the halls of kings, or will you feel like so many others before you? The thing I love the most about Brigands of Arja is that it's designed from the ground up around a fully featured campaign system. Every game takes less than an hour to play, and with a quick and easy post-game sequence, it is possible to do the previously unthinkable. Actually complete a full wargame campaign in a single gaming session. This is one that you do not want to miss, so check out my link below to the Kickstarter campaign page for Brigands of Arja and prepare yourself for battle in the desolate frontier as it goes live this month. And thanks to Firelock Games for sponsoring today's video. Okay then, so what is this news? Well, it's something that people have been dreaming about now for like 7 months, which in fairness is a long time to dream. I mean, usually I wake up screaming after a few minutes. I just can't do the deep sleep. Something comes for me. This is Trench Crusade. Now, Trench Crusade isn't the news. It's old news now. It totally blew up earlier this year. Lots of people heard about it, but if you didn't know, Trench Crusade is a miniature war game that is just like Warhammer 40k, but it's different in a few key ways. It's a small scale skirmish game, so you only need to buy, build, and paint a few models. All the rules are free digitally, no massive rulebooks that you have to buy here, and also the art has lots and lots of tits and ass, which is something that Warhammer has increasingly lost in recent years. But it's also super similar to Warhammer 40k in a really important way, perhaps the most important way. It's similar because the person who would be interested in Warhammer will also, demographically speaking, be very likely to be super interested in Trench Crusade too. I'm serious, the demographic of nerd here is like a 1-to-1, because just like Warhammer, Trench Crusade is super grimdark, it's bleak, it has amazing art and a really compelling setting, and it's very popular as a result. When it went up on Kickstarter this year, it ended up running away with $3.5 million, an almost unheard of number in the miniatures fundraising space if you're anyone other than BattleTech, and it totally blew up everyone's expectations overnight. It became a huge sensation. It was crazy, but I'm sure that the executives of Games Workshop weren't worried at all, because Trench Crusade has issues. It's expensive. To play, you need to buy miniatures, and the only first-party miniatures available are 3D printed, which means you either need to own a 3D printer yourself or know someone that does. And even then, the models come in resin, which are hard to work with, and they need to be washed, presumably in holy water, and they're awkward to build. There's not a lot of customization, and fatally, there's no in-store presence for Trench Crusade. You can't buy anything in a shop, so game stores have no incentive to ever host a Trench Crusade tournament or event, meaning that if you're really into Trench Crusade, it'll be almost impossible to build a community of gamers in your local area to get together and play, which is the death knell of any multiplayer miniature war game. And this is a problem that Games Workshop themselves identified decades ago, which is why they have so many high street stores and support the competitive Warhammer tournament community so much, because that's where their core audience lives. The core audience who are also the big spenders that make them that $500 million every year. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. This new Amazon Warhammer show coming out, it's fantastic, right? It's gonna create a bunch of new fans. But the only way that Games Workshop will make any substantial money from these new people is if those viewers go into store and buy miniatures because of it. So as a result of all this, Trench Crusade is limited in how much it could ever threaten Games Workshop's dominance of the hobby, even if it has gotten an insane amount of support and fundraising and tons of fans. And when I released my video covering the Kickstarter of Trench Crusade earlier this year, lots of Warhammer only fans argued that Trench Crusade could never get close to Warhammer because all of these problems ultimately make it inevitably an indie level game. It's not AAA, it can never be AAA. And they were right. Until now. Because guess what? Turns out, all of that is now changing. Trench Crusade just made an insane announcement this week that they are fully moving away from bespoke 3D printing and all those problems I just mentioned, and instead will be selling hard plastic miniatures in stores just like Games Workshop. Trench Crusade are producing miniatures that, just like Warhammer models, are going to be super customizable and easy to build. Models that will be sold in your local game stores, allowing for local groups to finally build up and incentivize stores to run events and build Trench Crusade communities in the real world, just like Warhammer 40k. And of course, they're raising the price by 1000%, just like Warhammer. No, wait, no, they're not doing that actually. The prices have gone down a little. So yeah, this is huge news. Now, this is the first box that's coming out, and it costs less than this single model from Games Workshop, so it's relatively affordable. Plus, it also includes all the digital rules that you'll need to play with these models. It's all free online. And honestly, the new kit that they've shown so far looks amazing. It's the Prussian Strauss Truppen warband that you get. It's got a ton of cool looking minis in here. It's filled with personality. There's a bunch of weird guys, including this one, who I think he has an animal husbandry insemination device, maybe? This guy has a sword though, I know what that does. Plus there's an angel, so you can't be mad. These models look great, the details are super sharp, and this is Trench Crusade's very first hard plastic miniatures, and they even come with customization options. Though, look out, I do see some what look to be vaguely like an Imperial Aquila from Warhammer sculpted onto some of these models. Games Workshop could come after them, although the Imperial Aquila, now that I think about it, was based on the crest of the Habsburgs, so I guess the Habsburgs are coming for Games Workshop instead. I mean, if they can find their way around their massive inbred chins. So yeah, this is big, and Trench Crusade have promised that even more is coming, a lot more. In fact, Trench Crusade is fully dropping reliance on 3D printing and moving their entire library going forward to hard plastic. This is fantastic for the hobby. Tons of people will now be able to play this game that couldn't before, and I know there's a huge audience for this. Hell, even third-party fundraisers are raising like thousands of dollars for 3D printable miniatures on websites like My Mini Factory for Trench Crusade. Who knows how well these hard plastic models that anyone can build and play with are going to do. So Trench Crusade looks like it's shaping up to be a real rival for Games Workshop going forward, and it's what I've been begging for so long. But you know, the story, it doesn't end here. That's not all. Because at the end of the day, Trench Crusade is quite different from Warhammer. It's a smaller scale skirmish game, and that type of game only has a very specific market of players. Only some Warhammer fans are going to be into that. Warhammer 40k, after all, is about big army level games where legions clash against one another in battlefields that, if you were to actually translate them into real life, would be about the size of a car park. And Trench Crusade just doesn't do that. So it will never be able to truly compete and defeat Warhammer. It just offers something a little bit too different. But, well, I got some more news. Have you heard about this other new game that's just come out and is popping right off? Yeah, this is Conflict 47, and it has massively blown up in the last month since it released. Now, it's kind of similar to Trench Crusade, only it's post-apocalyptic World War II, and it features more giant mechs, zombie soldiers, werewolves, jetpacks, robot man, dimensional teleporting samurai. and dogs. And this game is picking up a ton of steam in the mini wargaming hobby. It is consistently selling out in big retailer sites. There's tons of YouTubers jumping on top of it. It's getting really big. And it's pretty wild that it is, because this is from Warlord Games, a company that produces the biggest historical game in the world, the World War II war game, Bolt Action. And Conflict 47 is like the sci-fi alternative history version of it. Not to mention that the game design is from Rick Priestley, the creator of Warhammer 40k gameplay. And the lore of Conflict 47 is being written by famous old school ex-Games Workshop staff like Andy Chambers, Gav Thorpe, William King, and more. These are like the super group guys of the 2000s. They even have books planned out for the lore of Conflict 47. They are not skipping. This is a massive launch and people are receptive to it. And now the minis are out, and yeah, a lot of them are in hard plastic like Games Workshop and are being sold in stores local to you right now. It is organically blowing up amongst wargamers. So combined together, both of these new games represent a unique danger to Warhammer's dominance of the wargame hobby. And people say that it's crazy for Warhammer to be dethroned, that it could never happen. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that Warhammer is going away. Again, they just signed up with Vampire Survivors. They have pretty much already made it. However, Warhammer losing its like #1 status in the wargame hobby has happened before. Only it was like 15 years ago, which is not that long ago, because for a while there in the 2010s, Warhammer was actually eclipsed by a different wargame called War Machine from Privateer Press, who briefly looked to become the biggest miniatures game in the entire world, only for Privateer Press to completely fuck it up, and the rest is history. Warhammer went on to become as massive as it is now, and War Machine is barely spoken about. But that was an inflection point, and I think we're coming to another one of those, a potentially new era of wargaming. And I suspect the Trench Crusade and Conflict 47, the companies that run them, I don't think they're gonna f up as much as Privateer Press did. So on the one side, you got Trench Crusade with its super dark setting, amazing art, and fantastic miniatures. Then on the other, you have the super fluffy old school Warhammer play experience with Conflict 47 from all the people that made Warhammer 40k. There's some great miniatures there and a ton of kit bashing and customization options in that game too. And combined, they're both going to be in stores, taking up shelf space, competing with Games Workshop, and both of them have gotten tons of marketing and are gathering huge audiences of people who want to play them. But okay, here's the thing, a little bit of a secret, this video isn't really about how Games Workshop are going to be screwed, because if all you care about is Warhammer, then all of this is fantastic news, because everyone agrees on a couple of stuff. Warhammer has problems, okay? The codex system is outdated, buying rules sucks, the miniatures are often overpriced, constant price rises are lame, balance is really poor, GW push FOMO sales a lot, Games Workshop try to shut down fan creators, they go after other sculptors, okay? There's a lot of issues here. And one of the reasons that all this happens is because Games Workshop have a monopoly on the wargame hobby. They have no true competition. Well, this year, we got a ton of new competition, and it's the only way that, short of regulating Games Workshop, and trust me, we barely regulated the banks, I don't think we're gonna regulate Games Workshop, that Warhammer will ever change, that it will get more consumer friendly, or that GW will listen to fans. But with some new kids on the block that threaten Warhammer with their lower prices, their digital rule sets, and Adidas tracksuits, they'll put pressure on Games Workshop to change how they do things. If GW want to keep winning new customers into their game, they're gonna have to start earning them. Otherwise, their bubble could burst. We could get double bubble trouble. At the very least, I think that this pressure is gonna result in some easy wins for the community, for hobbyists. Things like digital codices and rules in the next edition of Warhammer 40k. The company has to respond to this type of pressure. These games don't need to eclipse Games Workshop to force GW to change some of their business decisions. Just existing is good enough. And if Games Workshop don't change, well then maybe the next big CGI breakout YouTube video like Astartes will instead be called Heretic and be about Trench Crusade instead. Or Little Big War, which you can buy right now. It's my very first war game. I'm really happy about it. This is the definitive base building war game where you train up your forces, you harvest resources, and then you go to war to conquer the dark dimension. engine for your unique faction of choice in fast-paced, furious miniature gameplay that can all be done on a small coffee table. You can pick it up at Patreon or Wargame Vault at the links below. It's short and easy to read, and it's filled with awesome art. But if you want to just support the channel directly, you can go to my Patreon where I do reviews of many different war games and create ad-free videos, and you can even get your names in the credits. It's only thanks to your support that I can make this content. So thank you so much, especially to CryptoKev, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye.